Today on the Topping Show, Representative Thomas Massie on DC's refusal to cut fraud, a Wendy's drive-through altercation goes viral on social media, American gun companies continue to be owned by foreign investments, a 1988 Chevrolet truck is sold with 55 miles for six figures, and the General Motors 10-speed transmission recall gets even worse. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of the Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency IT security. Heck, I say the founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. Ease me, see that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, reach out to the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, still giving away a free Flamethrower with every IT purchase with Picatinny rail adapters. So you can mount to any standard AR-15 like all awesome accessories can be. Go to toppingtechnologies.com and click the Flamethrower button to learn more and see me shooting the Flamethrower. And lastly, trying to get 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month. So if you can click that button and tell your friends and your enemies, I would greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part of the podcast, you have a vintage Chevrolet pickup truck selling for six figures with only 55 miles. Now, this is brought to us thanks to thedrive.com, specifically Caleb Jacobs, and he says, quote, 55-mile Chevrolet square body, still wrapped in factory plastic, sells for $100,000. And he says someone got themselves a new truck with a 454 cubic inch block. Oh, that's pure America right there. Though, disappointingly, it has an automatic transmission. Who the hell would do that? What a terrible option. But nevertheless, that truck looks mint, to say the least. And, well, it's a low bar, but yeah, pretty much better than anything General Motors makes these days, obviously. Now, he says, quote, among all cowboy cosplayers, it's time to write another sad song about the one that got away. We aren't talking about a woman or a smallmouth bass, but instead a 1988 Chevy 1-ton that just sold for $100,000. The odometer shows 55 miles, an almost unbelievably low number that is backed up by the factory plastic that still covers the interior. The fact that it is not even dealer prepped makes it truly a rare bird. Which, yeah, this is truly a time capsule. It looks beautiful. Just breathtaking. It's so old. This is back when General Motors made reliable products, which is unheard of. Now, they say, quote, sold at a GAA Classic Cars event and is first spotted by folks at Truck Rodeo, this truck features a unique spec. It has air conditioning, power windows, cruise control, four-wheel drive, and a 3-speed automatic rather than the manual transmission. What could have been? I would say still it wasn't built as a sparse work truck. There's a 454 cubic inch V8 under the hood, and rather than a carburetor feeding it, you'd find a factory throttle body setup. That GM made the switch in 1987. It's painted doe skin tan with a saddle shade interior, so just right. Even the seatbelts are done up brown. The original still in place window sticker reveals a few more options like comfort tilt steering wheel, AM/FM radio, and a cassette deck, and intermediate windshield wipers, which, I mean, this was the bee's knees back in the day. And so it's crazy to see the good old manual odometer with the actual spinning numbers, 55, well, technically 55.9 miles, but who's counting? That is insanely cool. Now, they say, quote, dual fuel tanks ensure you can drive past a gas station or two with a big block, though you can bet it's a screamer with a 456 rear end. Surprisingly, there's no gooseneck hitch in the scratchless bed, but you know, it does have some awesome windshield paint advertising its Super Dually closed special. I'd keep that on forever. Listing says it's sold new at Greenwood Chevrolet in Fort Meade, Florida. The truck still bears the dealer name on the front plate as well as its tailgate. I don't love it, but when dealers do that to trucks now, effectively turning them into rolling billboards. But I have a soft spot for retro signage, and after all, there's no Chevy Olds stores around anymore. And he says, whether someone got a dealer, not 100,000 is tough to say. I mean, you could spend that kind of money on new Duramax if you want to. I personally wouldn't drop that kind of cash on a main pickup, but I don't have that money anymore, period. So what's the point? Again, this credit to Caleb Jacobs over at thedrive.com. And yeah, I mean, nowadays trucks are $100,000 and it won't last more than 50,000 miles. They're pretty damn unreliable. And this is a really cool time capsule. And I'm glad they didn't extrapolate saying this is a great investment. Look how much money it's worth. Because it was really a terrible investment. Now, I have to say this. This is not financial advice. I'll just say this. I looked up the value of this truck. Again, they were saying maybe it sold for, I think the base was $10,500 with all the bells and whistles. There's some models of this where it went up to, how much was it? It was like $15,000 back in the 80s. I could zoom in a little bit more there. And this looks not a single dent or blemish on it. It looks beautiful. However, if you do the math, and this is just I just looked up an S&P calculator. I said, let's average this out. Let's say it's cost $14,500 in 1988. And all you did is put into the S&P 500 and reinvested the dividends. Instead of $100,000, you get $732,468.05. Again, that's if you reinvest the dividends. So again, people are making a lot of comments like, oh my gosh, so much money for a truck. Again, not financial advice, but if you're just putting in the stock market, you'd make a lot more and have nothing to worry about in terms of, well, putting insurance on this thing, making sure it's in a climate-controlled environment, making sure no one's hitting it with a baseball or anything. So I just like to, because again, some people treat vehicles as financial investments. I think it's asinine. Again, you could have had almost $1 million. Now I'm rounding up quite a bit. Okay, $750,000. And it's really cool. I mean, again, if I had to get a truck, Lord knows I would not buy a modern truck. Except maybe, the Toyota Tacoma because it has a stick shift option. You know me, I like my stick shifts and, well, green paint option as well. Again, it's pretty cool to see this time capsule. I always say I don't like garage queens because, cars are engineered to be driven at the track or, on the farm. But in this case, with 55 miles, it is such a cool, unique time capsule. Again, even the factory wrap is on the interior. I would not be surprised if this goes to a museum. It just goes to show you the build quality of vehicles back in the day. But yeah, you can bet your bottom dollar if someone actually uses this as a work truck, it's going to last, half a century. Again, I thought it was pretty cool automotive news, but let me know your thoughts because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the cultural part of the podcast, you have an altercation at Wendy's going viral on social media. This brought to us thanks you and wokeness on X, and he says, quote, meanwhile, at a Wendy's drive-thru, looks like you have two patrons jumping through or breaking through the side door. I forget what we call the pickup at the Wendy's drive-thru. Or that little side window thingamajig. And, well, cover your ears if you have trouble listening because they're quite bombastic and violent.
Give me my cross, bitch! Give me my...
They're picking up drinks. These two gals are reaching into the Wendy's facility, picking up drinks and throwing them at the employee. So, going from throwing drinks at the employee to now silverware, which, well, is plastic, but still.
Okay. Give me my card.
No, throwing salt packets now.
I will fuck them up.
Employees are fighting back. They threw a burger or something. There you go. I think employee threw some type of cold substance onto the two girls trying to, well, be especially bombastic. Oh, now they're coming back. Wait, is this a different girl? I think so. She has a bonnet on and a purple jacket or a sweater. They brought in reinforcements. Now stealing food and napkins. Well, I guess napkins are complimentary, technically. Now throwing more high fructose corn syrup drinks at the employees. Now throwing the, what do we call those packages for the French fries? Throwing those at the employees now. And, well, thankfully, the employees were not hurt. Well, emotionally, yeah, they're probably scarred and intimidated by this attempted robbery. But, yeah, Wendy's going viral and not in a good way. Can't but think culturally we're having more and more of a societal decay. I mean, this kind of stuff didn't happen when I was a kid. Back in my day, I tell you what. Back in the day where Wendy's had the, the yellow packaging for the foods. And it was actually good food at fast food. Believe it or not, it would actually had a modicum of quality way back in the day. A long time ago. Some might argue in a galaxy far, far away. But in all seriousness, yeah. I feel bad for the employees. And more often than not, they're not empowered to actually defend themselves. Management usually tells them to acquiesce to the bad guys every single time. Thereby, well, my theory, thereby increasing the frequency of bad things happening. And it'll be interesting to see how Wendy's handles this. Now, again, this is a one-off incident. It's not happening every single hour, every single day. In terms of increasing the security and therefore also the cost of goods sold to the consumer, I suspect maybe in the future they'll have additional barriers. Again, you already have instances where they have separate windows for the transaction of the cash and material or the financial aspect versus also picking up the food. I suspect there is a security reason why they did it as well, not just streamlining operations. But yeah, I feel really bad for these workers because, well, you can tell these gals acting like jerks never worked a minimum wage job in their life. And when I become president and or dictator someday, everyone will work a minimum wage job for at least 6 months. Ideally, fast food or some type of customer service environment where you will learn to have a thick skin and the age-old saying, put yourself in someone else's moccasins. You can clearly tell someone if they've worked, well, if they've got some calluses on their hands at one point in their life, they actually had to deal with irate customers. Because again, those people do not act like this. They're not going to harass these Wendy's employees and they're sticking their head and arms through the window, which again, I would argue, again, not a lawyer, the Wendy's corporation should use vast amount of, they should use some effort. Once you pass that threshold where, again, this is now intimidation, I think you could argue the employee feel like their life's being threatened. They should be able to respond in due course, so to say, not just throw a hamburger at these gals. And it's an instance where, again, you could tell these gals have never worked a minimum wage job in their life or a customer service job in their life. Because again, if you worked a rough 8-12-hour shift at a Wendy's or a movie theater, you're going to learn how to treat other people nicely. And you're not going to do stuff like this. Now, there's an issue where there's less young people working in fast food and these entry-level jobs as, again, adults and other people have stolen those jobs from them. That kind of started in 2008 with that recession. There's a whole shift. I think that's detrimental to society. Kids need to learn work ethic as well as, customer service and treating people the way they want to be treated, which is something we're seeing less and less of these days. Now, it's got about 893,000 views and 19,000 likes. One of the first comments comes to us thanks to Gunther Eagleman, who says, quote, "We don't have to live like this," getting 365 likes. The Waco kid says fascinating behavior, getting 47 likes. Paul Zupa says, quote, "Their fathers failed them," getting 131 likes, which, in this case, the 3 gals who attacked the Wendy's employees were African Americans, which, statistically speaking, was it 75% of the time, do not have a father at their home. And it's an instance where, can't but think, society is better off when parents physically discipline their kids. Now, again, I'm not saying to the point where you actually send them to the hospital, heaven forbid. Again, gotta have a balance in everything in life, but once, I had my generation where, my parents should have, given me a whooping a couple times. Thankfully, got a work ethic and good. I think religion was a variable in terms of how it turned out, but it's an instance where a lot more people should be, again, disciplined. And you can tell they clearly have not. And again, part of having the dad in the household is, traditionally, you bring in the discipline. There used to be, kids used to get scared when the mom used to say, "Wait till your dad gets home." And again, he'd give you a whooping, or at least break out the belt, or the thread of the belt. And shoot, kind of like the kid putting their hand on the stove once. Well, maybe you're slow like me, you do it twice. But in all seriousness, pain is a teacher. And we see in society becoming weaker and weaker with kids getting zero discipline, zero ramifications, where they have no consequences, no accountability. I guarantee you these gals treating this Wendy's employee like with utter disdain, disrespect. I guarantee you they never were put in timeout. They were never slapped upside the head or given the belt. And yeah, you can tell. You also have the conservative alternative, which says, quote, "You can take out the third worlder out of the third world, but you can't take the third world out of the third worlder," getting 63 likes. Now, again, we have no idea if these are immigrants or who they are, where they're originally from. One bad dude also says they don't get paid enough, getting 54 likes. It's got 1.9 thousand likes, so I don't agree with it. This is from Conservative Patriot. It says, quote, don't judge an entire race based on how only 98% of them behave, getting 1.9 thousand likes again. Flop says black privilege is the ability to break every law in the country and still remain the victim, getting 1.3 thousand likes. The Deplorable Millennial has a picture of some Somalians. It says, "We are traumatized by ICE. We demand reparations," where, again, these gals, they're not Somalian. Going down more and more. Noah says, now it's a picture of Trump with a deport button, getting 132 likes. Anon Burger, it's a picture of George Washington. It has a picture of Martin Luther King Jr. Says, quote, when you realize your people were being judged by the context of their character all along, gaining 47 likes. Dexter says, so disrespectful. It looks like here's a video of the aftermath of that altercation where, again, the Wendy's floor is now completely dirty of, straws, forks, mustard packets, we call it, French fry holders. Let me know in the comments, what the hell do you call those stupid things? The French fry holders? Obviously, I don't get fast food. I, just buy food from the Walmart. Let's see here. I got 212 likes. Look at this actor. Is it Three's Company? This is from James Coriana. It says, oh, geez, is it them again? Getting 314 likes. And again, I think the big issue is, again, kids not having minimum wage jobs where they could learn work ethic and learn how to treat others, as well as absentee fathers. Or more and more, you're not seeing them at home. So I think that's, the main reason why you're seeing more and more of these instances. And again, it's not every single day, but I think it's still an indicator of kind of the American cultural decay just getting worse and worse. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting cultural news, you have more and more American gun companies being owned by foreign investments. Now, yes, this is brought to us thanks to Spike, who says, quote, the American gun industry is rapidly becoming like the rest of American economy, foreign-owned. CZG, CZ Tech Origin, owns Federal, Remington, CCI, Spear, and Heavy Shot. Colt CZ owns all of Colt in 2021. Browning and Winchester are owned by F. and Herstal of Belgium. Beretta is now picking at Ruger and their subsidiaries. This is not a sign of a healthy nation with a strong, robust, and growing economy. This is stagnation and decline. Agree. Yeah, 190,000 views and 3.6 thousand likes. Which, another issue is, frivolous lawsuits. If you look at some of these companies, Remington was one of the biggest one that got sued multiple times because of their subsidiary Bushmaster, which used to be a famous AR-15 manufacturer. Frivolous lawsuits are destroying these companies as well. And then some of them, quite frankly, did not innovate and they just sucked. I say this as someone who actually likes some of these companies like Colt. Going back the clock 100 years ago, Colt Manufacturing was almost like it was the Google of the day. They made some of the best firearms on the planet. They had huge contracts. They would treat their employees like gold. Even, there's some stories where you'd have employees start there working for decades, and when they got too old to work the assembly line, they would still pay them the same amount of money to be a janitor. And even at some point where they could barely do that, they still paid them and they took care of those employees. Colt was revolutionary. Some of the best firearms in history came from Colt. Well, most famously, the repeating revolver. First repeating revolver in history was Samuel Colt. He got that patent. He was brilliant. And then they manufactured, many products, most famously the AR-15, which, that was actually made by Armalite in California. Ironic, until Colt bought the intellectual property, mass-produced it for the civilian market, then got military contracts. But again, that's a good instance of, they made the first AR-15 in mass production, and they had some good sales, but they really didn't innovate. And as soon as that patent expired, which is why you have hundreds of AR-15 manufacturers now, why would you buy a Colt? I actually thought about buying one when I was in college. I was looking at the competition, looking at the different AR-15 manufacturers. The Colt AR-15 was the most expensive one with the least amount of features. Quite frankly, didn't feel great in the hand. And at the time, it did not, especially the bolt carrier group, the quality was not as good as the competition coming from places like Daniel Defense, even not just Remington. They were a little late to get the AR-15 manufacturer process for that industry, but even Ruger's another big one for AR-15. Rock Island Armory, Rock Island out of Illinois. There are a lot of AR-15 manufacturers that, for less money, you got a lot more value. So the only people I knew who ever bought a Colt AR-15 were historians who love the history of Colt and what they used to be. Colt is like General Motors. Colt went bankrupt multiple times because, quite frankly, they didn't innovate. They've had some interesting ideas throughout the years, but in terms of changing the world, like they did with the Colt repeating revolver, they never really did. And again, this is coming from someone where if I had unlimited money, I would love a hand-engraved Colt revolver. That would be amazing. They are works of art. The Colt Anaconda is iconic. But Colt was late to the game when you had the whole revolutionary moving of the industry, going from all steel firearms to now you have you also have a Glock taking over. They had a huge revolutionary with their trigger design, with the Glock safety, obviously, and that introduced polymers. Colt was so late to the game; it's comical when it comes to polymer firearms. Smith & Wesson is still independent for now, headquartered out of America, Tennessee. But in terms of who's still owned by American companies, that's very, very few. Now, they say Winchester. A lot of those companies are just branding. Take an example, Winchester, the ammunition. That's not Winchester. That's actually owned by the chemical company Olin. Now, Olin, as you would think, makes all the propellants. They make all the components for ammunition. It's just a licensing deal, which is why you buy Winchester ammo. It's not really Winchester ammo. It's just branding, which I used to buy, but they had so many misfires. I started to buy foreign-made PMC out of Korea, which, again, as a kid, I was very much, and I still am trying to buy as much made in the USA as I can. But again, the PMC ammunition was cheaper and more reliable. And I had a couple of misfires with the Winchester white box, which again, that's more of a value product. It's not made for defense or, your lifestyle depending on those type of ammunitions. But still, it's one of those things where I just don't want to deal with a squib fire or a stovepipe. I just don't want to deal with that. It's not worth it. Again, Colt, in terms of innovation, you could really thank Browning, John Moses Browning, not, that company right there. The Colt 1911, and Colt made it in mass volume, especially for World War II. That's where Americans start to realize the provenance and love it. Obviously, it's made in 1911, but that's really, I think, where it came to the cultural phenomenon and really through the stratosphere became more and more popular. Colt didn't design that. John Moses Browning did. He, again, is a genius. He also did things with F.N. Hurstel. The Browning High Power, the Browning 1919. Again, is an instance where Colt manufactured it in mass, but they didn't design it. They only looked intellectual property. There's many companies that make the 1911 standard pistol these days. Oh, well, okay, not as much as like a Glock pattern, but you know what I mean. It's not locked in with a patent anymore. And they talk about CZ Tech. They're growing. They actually make some good pistols. But in terms of, again, CCI, Remington, Federal. Again, it's an instance where there's been a lot of consolidation throughout the years, and one of the biggest offenders is the frivolous lawsuits by, again, people get negatively impacted by bad guys using firearms. Which, uniquely enough, you can't sue Ford Motor Company if someone uses their vehicle to drive to the crowd. But again, firearms politically has become firearms became a political issue years ago, and now you have people trying to bankrupt these companies and making a hobby of it. Even Daniel Defense, who I would argue makes the best mass production AR-15. Again, you can spend $6,000 for a naked AR-15, as in an AR-15 without any without any optics or bells or whistles. You can spend $6,000 on that alone. You get the best titanium, military grade stuff that weighs darn near nothing. I'm talking about like moderately mass production. I think Daniel Defense is one of the best ones. There's an instance where a bad guy uses their firearm, and the families and them try to sue Daniel Defense. And again, it is infuriating how poorly the firearm industry is treated, especially given the heritage of our country and how, the age-old saying is God gun. What is it? The age-old sign you used to see at the side of the road. God guns. What is it? It used to be on a t-shirt too. What was it? God and guns made America free. Let's keep it be, or something like that. But again, it used to be a huge. Actually read a great book by Smith & Wesson. You lose me at the moment. It's on the shelf behind me, or not to my left. It's images of Smith & Wesson, and they talk about how, culturally speaking, all Americans used to be into firearms. And most major businesses even had shooting leagues, just like, bowling league used to be a thing. Nowadays, most companies are scared shitless to do anything with firearms. One of the things that makes my tech company so unique, we shoot machine guns for cybersecurity events. Not a lot of software companies will sponsor it, well, at least publicly. Well, it's a great way to stand out for the crowd and have fun. But there's instances where those events are very much taboo. I've lost friends, on LinkedIn, because my company hosts fun stuff like shooting full auto suppressed machine guns. Our signature event is called Shoot Full Auto Suppress Security Fears. And it is a blast, pun, of course, intended. But again, this person brings up a good point in terms of, more and more of our things that used to be, the bread and butter of America, they're not owned by us anymore. GM is owned by a Chinese subsidiary, basically. They sold out years ago. Again, there are very few companies that, one, are still family-owned, which is getting harder and harder to support in terms of, multi-generational businesses. Zippo, interestingly enough, being one of the few that is, again, multi-generational. Ford Motor Company, again, that's another one of the families still very much in control of it with the different stock that's separate from the publicly traded stock that you and I can buy. Was an instance where, family-owned businesses are rare. American-owned is even less. And with firearms, again, Beretta, I wouldn't be surprised if they bought out more companies. They're the oldest firearm manufacturer on the planet. They're actually one of the oldest businesses in history. If you're a bad writer, you'll notice that some people said it was a Benelli. No, Benelli is much newer. Beretta bought out Benelli. Little ADHD soapbox moment. I don't know why they keep getting that wrong in major publications. Again, Beretta, I mean, they were making cannons back in the day. I think one of the first contracts in existence, one was for insurance, another one was for cannon barrels or Beretta to the government of Italy. Fascinating, rich history. Again, still family owned, interestingly enough. Very rare. But yeah, in terms of Winchester and Browning, again, those are, again, nowadays, unfortunately, really just branding. FN Herstal, again, they make great stuff, not just Belgian waffles. I mean, the FN Scar Heavy is a great rifle. It's a pretty penny, don't get me wrong, but it's really cool. Big old 308. Hard to beat that type of stopping power. Again, Colt, I mean, they went bankrupt multiple times. I mean, was it 3 or 4 times? They didn't innovate. And it's sad that, again, more and more of what people think is, American owned, not really. Like Budweiser. It used to be American as Apple Pie or Chevrolet. Now they're owned by AB InBev is the legal entity name. And out of Belgium. It's an instance where it's sad. I mean, most brands are not owned by Americans anymore. And it's also because we're in a global economy. There are some United States companies that own overseas brands. I mean, at one point, General Motors owned Opel, one of the oldest legacy automobile manufacturers in Germany. They're not owned by Stellantis, which is headquartered in Italy, I believe. It used to be Fiat, then Stellantis bought out 17 brands, including Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge in the United States or stateside. Again, so there are a lot of companies moving out or moving around. America owns a couple of them, but overall, I mean, it seems like a country is becoming more and more hollowed out, and it's sad. I mean, there used to be American pride and craftsmanship with a lot of things we do. Pun not really intended. Craftsman. That's a great brand. Now, technically, it's mostly made by Emerson in the United States, but it's made by American factory workers. I mean, the Craftsman wrenches were iconic. I still have my grandpa's Craftsman wrenches the last multiple lifetimes. That's quality. Now, unfortunately, most of those are made overseas. I mean, the brand is American. Stanley Black and Decker owns the brand that is, not just Craftsman, but DeWalt and a whole bunch of other ones that, I mean, you basically have 3 manufacturers in the tool industry that own 60 brands. It's insane, the consolidation throughout the years. And unfortunately, more often than not, the manufacturing is shipped overseas, in part because of politicians, but also, culturally speaking, Americans seem to care less and less about manufacturing jobs. Again, if Americans all refused to buy a product because it's made overseas, I mean, we'd make them here. They would cost more because of regulation and those myriad of reasons why you have costs greater in the United States than making it overseas. But yet Americans, I mean, used to have pride in what we made. And this reminds me of one of the biggest glaring offenses in terms of industry trends would be like the automobile industry. My family used to work at General Motors on the assembly line and in management. I mean, it used to be winding back the clock a couple decades, especially in Michigan, still to this day a little bit in Michigan because, the big 3 are headquartered there. I mean, you get like a stink eye if you drove a foreign vehicle or what we would be considered a foreign vehicle that was imported here. I mean, people would give you weird eyes. They would judge you. You're supporting another country. You're not supporting America. But now with the global economy, I mean, Toyota, some people argue, well, it's Japanese. That's where the global headquarters is. Still controlled in part by the Toyota family. However, Toyota also has a headquarters in the United States, in Texas. They manufacture vehicles in the United States, in Texas, in Kentucky, in many areas. They employ Americans. So in terms of American pride, made in the USA, one could debate that now. Toyota is an American company. They employ people locally. They do research and development in the United States. They do advertising campaigns. They have multiple facilities. Again, part of the global economy, you're losing some of that pride, and it's getting more and more difficult to define. Again, I love to debate these types of things with my friends. Yes, I'm weird. We don't talk about sports balls, but I love to talk business stuff. And it's an instance where, nowadays, I would consider Toyota just as American in many ways. Because again, I'm from Texas. Well, I wish I was born here. I was born in the Midwest. I mean, again, they have their U.S. headquarters in Plano, Texas. There's about 5,000 employees there. Those employees spend and support local businesses, local real estate. And they're a big part of the community, obviously. And they make some of the best products on the planet. Toyota trucks made in Texas. I mean, General Motors has an assembly plant in Arlington, Texas. Now, it helps most truck sales are in Texas, so a lot of them make trucks here. And the chicken tax makes it so it's prohibitive to actually import trucks to the United States. But it's an instance where, General Motors, they outsource a lot of jobs throughout the years. A lot of their subcontractors make things over in China. Is it more American to buy a General Motors product or a Toyota product? the lines are getting more and more blurred. Now, getting back to the firearms thing, being uniquely American is what made our country great. Yeah, a lot of these companies just had a lack of innovation. Now, there are a lot of smaller firearm companies that are increasing in size and capabilities. They're growing. But in terms of the legacy brands, it's sad. But also, a little grain of salt, Remington has been crap for 30 plus years. It's been bought and sold multiple times. Springfield is another one. Springfield Armory used to be a U.S. government-owned entity where the government would manufacture firearms. Now, there's a conflict of interest because when the government would put out a bid for a firearm to be made for a war or what have you, government need, well, you'd have the private sector bidding on the project and the government-owned entity, Springfield Armory, bidding on it as well. And Springfield would win a lot of those bids and they manufacture a lot of those things. Now, Springfield nowadays has no resemblance to the U.S. government or government entity at all. They're mostly an importing company, importing guns from Croatia, which, again, some of them are pretty good quality, don't get me wrong. But it's not what it used to be. Remington is the biggest offender. I say it because, well, I don't know, I just got burned, or I'm not very happy that I spent a lot of time, because I'm weird, I'm left-handed. I'm sorry, if you're just tuning in now, you had no idea about my handicap. Well, not just my speaking aptitudes, but that too. Business where I searched long and hard to find a left-handed shotgun. They make them, very small batches. Remington was one of the few ones that has the ejection port on the, well, would be the correct side for a left-handed shooter. It's a classic Remington 870 Express. One of the most classic designs, 100 years plus. The new Remington found a way to make a pump-action shotgun unreliable. Let me restate that because it's so abhorrent. It's so mind-boggling. Remington found a way to make a pump-action shotgun unreliable. That's pathetic. I would never buy a Remington shotgun again because of that. It jams. A pump-action shotgun that jams. That's how bad Remington had become. And again, they've been bought and sold multiple times as well. Not just, the ammunition part of Remington, which again, chemical company owned, the Remington Firearm Division that actually made the pistols and the rifles. I mean, Remington is so bad at innovating, they didn't have a pistol for years. Again, that's one of the biggest markets, obviously. It's not just, shotguns and rifles, but pistols. See with the AR-15. I mean, Springfield was so late to the game, it was comical. Ruger finally got there. There's a bang for your buck. Ruger's pretty darn good. Great old Arizona-based company. They've been growing slowly but surely. They're probably one of the best companies that makes an exceptional product that you don't really hear about in terms of like a mass market, big marketing campaigns or everyone bragging about owning a Remington. They just make great products that they just work. They're great. And in terms of them selling out to Beretta, yeah, they might be. Now, again, Remington, the New York Post says, quote, bless me. New York Post says, quote, Italian gunmaker Beretta launches a proxy fight for U.S. firearms giant Storm Ruger and Company. Which, again, Storm and Ruger were the two gentlemen who started the company many, many years ago. They're also publicly traded. So you can have these types of hostile takeovers, and, well, if you want to, you can buy their stock too. And the firearms industry is especially volatile. And traditionally speaking, it's become a political thing. When Republicans get into office, firearm sales actually go down. One of the biggest, the joke is the bumper sticker actually used to be, they had a picture of Barack Obama that said gun salesman of the year. Because when, again, Barack Obama was elected in 2008, I talked to gun store owners, and they would say they sold more in 1 year than they did in 10 years combined. The sales spiked that much. It was exponentially. It's a great time to own a gun store. But again, traditionally, when Republicans get in the office and there's perceived less threat of regulation and more gun bans and limitations being put in place, sales usually decrease. So when Trump got elected, the industry is dramatically decreasing their sales frequency and their sales of most items. So I'm not surprised that, again, the stock is, on a discount and easy to someone to swoop in and buy. Now, in terms of Beretta destroying the brand, of all the companies that I actually would trust as a parent company, I would argue Beretta would be up there. Now, again, they're Italian. It would not be American owned. Right now, it's owned by the public. But again, Beretta has a good track record of buying companies and empowering them. Benelli makes an exceptionally good high-end shotgun, way above my pay grade. Geez Louise, they are a pretty penny, to say the least. Again, Beretta bought them, and they got even better. Very rare thing to say in manufacturing or any business scenario, to be sure. It is sad to think that, again, Ruger might not be American, but also the factories will still be here. Now, that is also because of regulation. There are many reasons why firearm manufacturers stay in the United States in terms of, they're not going to outsource these jobs to China. It's prohibitive, in some cases illegal, to import certain things in certain configurations of firearms. So again, there are many reasons why I don't think the factories will ever go away. So thankfully, the employees should have no interruption of their work or their compensation if they were to be purchased by Beretta. So again, it's still a little sad that they might not be American owned anymore. Now, The comments, again, got 190,000 views and 3.6 thousand likes. One of the first comments comes to us thanks to Phoenix Ammunition, who says, quote, sad truth is that a majority of firearm consumers don't care at all. They'll buy foreign guns and foreign ammo to save a couple pennies and then bitch about how American companies are all greedy profiteers. Yeah, 301 likes. Which, yeah, that's a huge cultural shift you've seen, again, with many products. When I was a kid, more and more people wanted to buy American. I'm, well, weird in many ways. I still like to do that. My Vitamix Blunder is 10 years and it runs like a champ. I think partially because, well, it's made in America. It's made in the USA. It's a, highly durable product. And again, when I was growing up, I bought Winchester ammo a lot. It had malfunctions a lot. So again, you have to make a good product. It can't just be made in the USA. That's one of the reasons why more and more people do not buy things manufactured by, well, General Motors or Ford. Competition is making more reliable products right next door. So in terms of American patriotism, but I think ammunition is the biggest, I was about to say in terms of the frequency of the firearm industry, what people buy in terms of foreign manufactured. Again, PMC, I think, is the number one volume manufacturer, again, out of South Korea. In terms of firearms, yeah, I mean, a lot of them are being imported. At least the ones that can be imported in the non-tactical configurations. There's all the bullshit regulation about what you can and cannot import in the United States. But yeah, in terms of small caliber pistols, yeah, a lot of those are being imported especially from Croatia. Again, they was it not just SAR USA, but Kantik, Turkish firearms. The price points are very aggressive, and I've had friends who bought them. They shoot pretty damn good, and they're getting better and better. Now, again, it's also not made in the USA. Some people are going to take offense to that; they'll never buy it. Personally, I've shot both United States manufactured guns, also foreign manufactured guns. In terms of the firearm industry having a big pivotal moment, I think Glock was one of the biggest manufacturers ever to get people to start buying foreign made. Now, that being said, Glock has a United States headquarters in Georgia. They make a lot of their firearms. The Glock 19 and Glock 17 are made in Georgia, in America. Now, that being said, that's partially because of military contracts, and there's a certain amendment that says if you want to sell to the government, it has to be made here. But again, it's not just altruistic to help out American manufacturers that are here. But again, they have U.S. manufacturer. Also in Georgia, you got Heckler and Koch, or Koch, however you want to pronounce it. They have their U.S. headquarters in Georgia. They manufacture some stuff here. But again, this stuff is mostly made in Germany. You have Ex-Suburban says, support Big Blue. It is Smith & Wesson, getting 266 likes. Which again, they are not without the controversy. They used to call it the Hillary hole, which is obviously a shtick at Hillary Clinton, where Smith & Wesson, they dragged their name through the mud because they said, oh yeah, we'll acquiesce to the government control. We'll make bastardized products. We'll introduce a keyhole to a revolver so you can lock it. So that way it has a safety. Which is one of the dumbest things on the planet is putting a lock hole on a revolver. So stupid. That being said, Taurus did the same damn thing. And Taurus is famously made in Brazil. I mean, people used to have pejorative connotation towards their firearms, but Taurus, I've never had that many issues when I've shot them. You have Spike who says, quote, at this point we're obligated to do it, getting 112 likes. And D says, quote, I would rather Beretta buy a Ruger than a company that haven't fallen to Indian or other third world slop. Beretta is the OG of the game, getting 185 likes. I'd actually be more concerned with private equity coming in and swooping in. Because more often than not, when private equity gets involved, they buy the company and do everything they can to reduce cost, more often than not, decrease quality. Now, again, Beretta, they have had one of the best track records in history. Spike also says, if you're worried about India, don't look too deep into SIG's production line. This is an article, I love when they cut off the name so you don't know who published it, but it says, 6 Hour to make firearms in India enters into partnership with the Pune-based Neeb Group, getting 196 likes. Now, that being said, again, when it comes to manufacture of your products, guess what they make in the United States? Yeah, well, it used to be when they had the Beretta M9 pistol contract with the U.S. military. I believe it was made in Maryland. Again, because of the government contract, they stopped manufacturing here. That brought a lot of jobs to America. That was a good thing. I wouldn't be surprised if India had that same standard. If you want to sell to our government, make them here. Employ our people. So again, I'm not going to, again, SIG has more issues than this, trust me. But in terms of having that be an issue, a condition of doing business, that makes sense. India did the same thing with Apple. They said, hey, Apple, you want to sell your awesome product here? You're going to start manufacturing here. And I forget the leader of India, but again, he made that condition. Tim Cook said, yeah, we'll do that. And now they're manufacturing iPhones in India. And now they're selling a lot of iPhones in India. So it's an instance where, again, SIG has a lot more issues than that. You also have High Point Firearms says we're not going anywhere. Getting 70, let's make it 71 likes. In terms of making a firearm to a price point that no one can beat, High Point is the best. Lord knows they're not going to win any beauty contests. Well, neither am I. But again, High Point makes a reliable firearm, goes bang every single time, and is affordable to the American consumer. You got to appreciate that. Then you make some fun carbines. I think, yeah, they make a 9mm and even a 10mm carbine. I think they also have it chambered in 45 ACP as an option. But yeah, the gun company that no one talks about too much, I mean, the Yeet Cannon from High Point. I mean, it is the Toyota Camry of the firearm industry. They just work every single time. Gotta give them credit. Also have Spike says, I love you guys so much. Replying to High Point. Your lowers are on so many of my builds. RMA Defense says, foreign-owned defense companies seem like a national security issue, getting 112 likes. Yeah, I can see that being an issue. It's especially concerning when stupid countries, well, I think countries are stupid when they don't manufacture firearms and military armaments inside their own country. Again, the foreign-owned is one thing, but if you outsource that completely, like weak European countries, you're opening yourself up to a lot of supply chain attacks. Like imagine if, your army no longer has access to guns or ammo because you don't make them in your own country. Which again, some weak, spineless, stupid European countries have done. Which, yeah, that's not very smart. In terms of foreign-owned defense companies, there are a couple contracts the U.S. has with foreign-owned. Now, again, I'm talking about the military-industrial complex. A vast majority, well, the best ones are all headquartered here. They all make stuff here. I think the most popular one not headquartered in the United States would be BAE Systems, not just a Nissan thing. They're known for making tank armor as well as missiles and other propellants. So BAE Systems is in the UK, globally headquartered, but again, they have US offices, US manufacturing sites. So again, the stuff that we need is made here. Although ironically, it's all shipped all over the planet because we don't really keep much here to defend our own nation. We spend a lot of time building our nations up, but another topic for another time, perhaps. We also have Captain Doombeard says, quote, Oak Tech and Smith & Wesson to save us all. 128 likes. And Spike says the economy will be built and subsist on coke, getting 84 likes. Hard Pass is just starting. It'll be an interesting year for the industry, getting 113 likes. Yep. Again, a lot of AR-15 manufacturers have gone bankrupt and are sold in the past 48 months especially. Now, it's partially because there's a huge increase during the pandemic of new firearm manufacturers to fill the gap that, again, was unprecedented amount of demand. During the pandemic, I talked to a local gun store owner. He said, for the first time in 10 years, there's a line outside his door that Saturday morning, and it was down the block. I believe he's owned that company for 15 years. He's never seen that before. There's unprecedented demand. A lot of people bought them. Now, again, some anti-gun people would say, why do you need more than one AR-15? Well, multiple calibers and configurations in America, but the average consumer probably won't get more than a couple AR-15s. There are so many manufacturers. Yeah, the market, I don't think can sustain it at the moment, especially when Americans are being stretched thinner and thinner with their paychecks and taxes. This person is noting Anderson. Anderson Arms actually recently sold to Ruger. Interestingly enough, that Anderson was much more known for entry-level or cheap AR-15 receivers and kits. Ruger is more, I would argue, mid-market in terms of the type of great quality, but again, you're not spending $20,000 on their rifles, anything like that. You also have Mega saying, so what happened with Remington? Really enjoyed the Remington 700 I had. Again, it unfortunately, it's been a brand that's been bought and sold so many times, and the quality went downhill. It's one of those things where I would never buy one of their shotguns. Again, it blows my mind. They found a way to make a pump-action shotgun unreliable. That's nearly impossible, but they found a way to do it, damn it. It's ridiculous. Spike says, Remington was run by suits who didn't even own guns all the way back to 2007 when they were scooped up by DPMS. Yep, precisely. Getting 33 likes. Spike says, Bill Ruger thankfully has been gone for 24 years now. Oh, I would be thankful of that. Let's see here. Excuse me. Let's see here. Some people are saying it's a free market. Yeah, it is. Spike says, I would kill to get reasonably priced foreign-owned imports back. 37 likes. You have that, dude. Again, I'm not an ambassador for any of these brands, but you can go and get a Canic pistol for a couple $100. It comes with 3 mags and a bunch of accessories, or magazines if you want to spell out the whole thing. Again, they're pretty damn affordable. Now, Torsten says FN is by far the least problematic, with a rich history collaborating with John Browning, and they have one of the larger domestic production out of others, getting 50 likes. Which, yeah, again, FN, U.S. headquarters, I believe, is South Carolina, with operations in multiple states. again, in part because U.S. military contracts says you have to make them here. I make them all deuce, famously. The FN Scar Heavy. Jeez Louise, a pretty penny again. In terms of pistols, they haven't won a lot of contracts there, but they make some cool pistols as well. Again, in terms of a major quality firearm manufacturer, I think FN Herschel is one of the best in the world. And again, they employ Americans. They have American factories all over. They make some great products. Yeah, I think realistically, it'll be either FN or Beretta to buy them. And also, I do wonder how much it's worth it for those companies. Again, Ruger makes great products that not enough people brag about, I don't think. I do wonder, they're either going to be, oh, here we go. They're going to be worried the economy will get worse. They're going to have no choice but to sell. Or again, it's also a hostile takeover. Henry Repeating Firearms says, this is a trend we're proud not to be a part of. 100% made in America and family owned. Always has been, always will be. 1.7 thousand likes. The issue with Henry Repeating Firearms is, to me, it's a luxury item. Again, Henry Repeating Firearms, they're best known for, as you would think, lever action repeaters. And you load up the tube under the barrel like a cowboy gun. And one of my favorite commercials actually was when you had a husband and a wife sitting in the living room and sad song about, things used to be made in the USA. The guy picks up his stuff in the living room and also everything says made in China there, and he throws it away. And then he looks at his, Henry rifle and says made in America. He puts it back on the wall. And it's really, at that time, though, it was an exceptionally executed commercial, pulled on your emotions, highlight the strengths of the company. Again, Henry is a great company, but I consider it a luxury item. Because again, in terms of why do a lot of people buy guns? A lot of people do it for self-defense, for a hobby, for the world ends. It's this instance where a lever action, kind of like a revolver, to me is very much a luxury item I would love to have someday, but I don't have excess capital to invest in. They're really cool. I've picked them up. I shot them before, the Henry guns. They are beautiful. They are works of art. I mean, the walnut stocks, the wood furniture is amazing. And I love the fact, again, made in the USA, by Americans, family owned. That's so rare. They're starting to diversify a little bit. They finally got a side gate loader where back in the day with Henry's, every single one you had to take out the tube, fill them up, put the tube back in. Now you can load it from the side gate like the old Winchester guns from back in the day that you would see in the movies. To me, that's one of the coolest things. Yeah, that is one of the coolest things when it comes to guns, is that side gate loader from the old Western movies. Again, Henry, great guns. And they don't expand too much. That's another issue with a lot of companies, historically speaking. They overexpand, they go bankrupt, and they get bought out. Henry's pretty good at making, just like Ruger, make a consistent product. They keep employing folks, and they keep knocking out of the park. Military Arms says, this is the state of the U.S. gun industry. After decades of far-left rule, they make it nearly impossible for U.S.-based companies to innovate due to BS regulations and harassment by the ATF. Yep, getting 697 likes. Hide your dogs. Yep, that's another issue as well. Another issue is the cost to do business as a firearm manufacturer. There's a lot, I try to keep this moderately family friendly, there's a lot of bullshit taxes they have to pay. Like when they make a gun, before they sell it, they have to pay the government some taxes. I forget the actual technical term, but yeah, they're taxing every single gun they make. In addition to overregulation, all the insurance they have to have, it's ridiculous. So yeah, that is another variable that's affecting those companies as well. Ironclad Develop says, I fear not, because we have PSA on our side. There's a frog fallen and it's labeled the gun industry. And up as Master Chief from Halo is Palmetto State Armory in 24, it's making 25 likes, which, yeah, in terms of the company giving you exceptionally high quality products at a great price point, Palmetto or PSA is one of the best out there. They make great AR-15, well, they make a lot of good gun kits as well as complete firearms. Yeah, they're one of the best companies that is slowly but surely increasing in value. I mean, just look at the quality test where they try to break those guns with thousands of rounds down the barrel. And Palmetto makes some of the best bang for your buck, bar none. You also have Hornady, who says, quote, American made and American owned. We're proud to make our bullets and ammo right here in America, which I only got 13 or 12 likes. I'll give him a like for that. Yeah, Hornady, famously, well, to me, famously, because I'm a nerd, I know like company's headquarters. I don't know sports balls, but it's like, yeah, famously headquartered in Nebraska, make great high quality components, which again is how you can compete in the United States. It's really hard to compete on a very entry level price point. So it's sad to see a lot of these companies being sold off. But again, with the economic uncertainty, I'll do one more. Actually, this is good. This is from Armed Joy. It says, quote, it's been a long while for American gun companies just lost the sauce, particularly through the 90s and early 2000s. There's a lot of mediocre, garbage, and weird missteps. European guns just ended up being designed better, built better, and often cheaper. We have a German service pistol as our main weapon for most of our police, a German rifle as our go-to for special forces weapon, and a Belgian company makes most of the M4s for the military. can't cope with something like China and other European companies that are subject to as much regulation, taxes, and infinitely stronger unions, and other usual excuses why American manufacturer falls behind everyone else. It's gotten better recently, but there are notable U.S. companies making good guns. But when you step back, we simply lost the juice for a long time. Just look at what happened with Aero, which Aero Precision was one of the best companies out there for a long time, getting 182 likes. Which, yeah, again, a lot of the, especially American manufacturers, are very late to the game to get to the innovation of polymer firearms, where, again, people say they're plastic guns. The lower part of the pistols are plastic or polymer. The upper is still metallic, obviously. But it's an instance where, yeah, Smith & Wesson, they bought out, well, for many reasons, but they bought out Walther to get into the industry of the polymer-based firearms for the lower of the pistols, because a lot of these companies, well, Colt especially, they did not get on the biggest innovation in firearms in, I'd say, in 50 to 100 years, which, again, was going to those lighter weight pistols. So a lot of them were late to innovate, and a lot of them lacked innovation at all. So, unfortunately, we'll see what happens in terms of acquisition, but I think you will see more firearm companies going bankrupt and being sold next 24 to 36 months. But let me know your thoughts, because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the political part of the podcast, Representative Thomas Massie calling out DC's lack of will to actually stop the fraud. This was actually first posted by J.D. Vance, who says, well, he says, quote, President Trump announces VP will be leading administration's war on fraud. I'm sure they'll do a lot about it.
When it comes to the corruption that is plundering, it's plundering America. There's been no more stunning example than Minnesota, where members of the Somali community have pillaged an estimated $19 billion from the American taxpayer. Oh, we have all the information. And in actuality, the number is much higher than that. And California, Massachusetts, Maine, and many other states are even worse. This is the kind of corruption that shreds the fabric of a nation, and we are working on it like you wouldn't believe. So tonight, although started 4 months ago, I am officially announcing the war on fraud to be led by our great Vice President, J.D. Vance. He'll get it done.
Will he?
And if we're able to find enough of that fraud, we will actually have a balanced budget overnight. It'll go very quickly. That's the kind of money you're talking about. We'll balance our budget. The Somali pirates who ransacked Minnesota remind us that there are large parts of the world where bribery, corruption, and lawlessness are the norm, not the exception. Importing these cultures through unrestricted immigration and open borders brings those problems right here to the USA. And it is the American people who pay the price in higher medical bills, car insurance rates, rent, taxes, and perhaps most importantly, crime. We will take care of this problem. We're going to take care of this problem. We are not playing.
Yeah, you say that. I hope you do. But I am skeptical. And Thomas Massie says so as well. Thomas Massie says, quote, this was called Doge, and at the last State of the Union and before you called it the Oversight Committee. No one in D.C. is serious about cutting fraud because one man's fraud is another man's re-election program. When I offered an amendment to end all daycare fraud, the speaker blocked it. Yeah, why did Elon Musk resign? You had Doge finding a lot of corruption. How many people did Donald Trump hold accountable? How many people went to jail for the fraud that they found? Now, they shut down USAID, so you could argue they stopped the bleeding in terms of money going overseas and the things that shouldn't be going to. But was anyone held accountable? Now, when it comes to Minnesota, which, again, I purposely mispronounced as a slight to that weak and conquered state, some people have been prosecuted. But what about the people, what about middle management? What about the upper management? What about Governor Tim Walz, who is overseeing all of this corruption, increasing more and more and more? Or Jason Frey, Minneapolis mayor. How many of them were held accountable? Oh, yes, 0. So again, some people, I believe, what was it, 60 of the 90 people accused were actually prosecuted. They got some penalties and fines. How many politicians were held accountable? I mean, do you think Trump actually, and Trump says, we're going to actually balance the budget by getting rid of the corruption. We'll reel it in. We'll expose the Democrats. We're going to drain the swamp. Oh, no. Oh, we're deport all the illegals. Mass deportations. Yeah, that's what he says. He said a lot of things. He made a lot of promises. Still waiting for him to get rid of the abhorrent federal income tax. That'd be nice. Lord knows we could use a break. But no. Again, Thomas Massie, give him credit. He's pretty consistent with his ideals. But again, they said, oh yeah, no, we're not going to actually do anything. So Trump has this new initiative, and J.D. Vance is going to be he'll be on the case. Will he? Will they find so much? Will they actually stop the corruption so much that they balance the budget? Which, again, Republicans have been saying since I was a kid, we're going to shrink the government, we're going to balance the budget, and get America back to work, which is a cliche thing all politicians say. Yeah, we're $38 trillion in debt because of the corruption and or ineptitudes of Democrats and Republicans. 38 trillion plus. We're spending more on the interest of that loan than we spend on defense, which when I was a kid, the biggest butt of politics was everyone complaining about how much we spend on defense, which is more than other countries, obviously, by a lot. But we're not spending more on the interest. We're not even paying the friggin' principal. Now, eventually we have to do something unique or have to do something innovative to actually offset that deficit, like sell something useless sell something useless that means nothing to our country's GDP or our people, but it could be worth selling to China. I know, we'll sell Hawaii. I mean, they're not making iPhones or software innovations or stuff there. They're basically tourism. They got a military base. Woohoo. They have the stupid, they call it the lays, the little necklaces they hand out. They got coconuts. And Hawaiian t-shirts, I suppose, but I think it was made in China. They're just designed in Hawaii. That could be it. We sell Hawaii to China, then we make Cuba the 50th state. So now that way our flags stay the same. So they have 50 glorious states. And I would argue Cubans and Cuba loves America and freedom a lot more than Hawaiians, but I'm only partially kidding. And since it's where, do you trust Shady Vance to do this? Again, they got some good marketing people at the Trump administration. A lot of people love J.D. Vance. But in terms of, again, reeling in the spending, stopping the corruption, holding anyone accountable, again, I'm pretty damn skeptical. Well, how many people has Trump arrested for the Epstein files? That, again, he said didn't exist. It was a Democrat hoax. Yeah. So, again, I hope we stop corruption. Lord knows we need to. We're spending money left and right. And we're putting all of us and our kids and kids' into debt. It's not sustainable. It's not good. But I'm very skeptical to think, oh yeah, they're gonna get right on that. J.D. Vance is on the job. Don't worry. Now, it's got about 786,000 views and 38,000 likes. Now, Thomas Massie says receipt. This is a tweet from February 4th. It was Thomas Massie said, quote, a judge said that Trump can't withhold daycare funds from states where his administration believes fraud is occurring, so I offered this amendment to the omnibus, which contains daycare program funding, to ambiguously give Trump the power to those funds. It was blocked. Got 4.5 thousand likes. One of the first comments comes to us thanks to Josh Boehm. It's Kevin from The Office. He's labeled GOP, and they're trying to force him to eat broccoli. It's labeled actual spending cuts. Getting 241 likes, which, yeah. Again, since I was a kid, Republicans always say we're going to shrink the government, give you gun rights, and balance the budget. Again, for decades, they've said that. It's always in their marketing materials. But, yeah, how much have they actually done? And we were supposed to, Trump said we were going to get, a freedom dividend because of the tariffs. Now, again, I blame the Supreme Court in part because they overdid the tariffs. But, again, we never got that. Some of the U.S. soldiers got some part of that dividend. Which, again, I think it's good that someone got it, and Lord knows they're giving to our country. I appreciate that, obviously. Again, Trump said everyone's going to get that back. Now, you also have Ugloff says the Thomas Massie Guide for Governance. It says, make outlandish demands that will never pass in law, post on Twitter, make no concessions, ensure the bill doesn't pass, complain on Twitter, plus campaign donation link. Get 178 likes, so you do have a contrarian statement. Satu dang it, I don't always try to butcher names. This guy, my speaking ineptitudes, from Natu Nakamoto, and it's Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme where you have the Boyle brothers. The one of them is hanging off the roof, and one is labeled Justice. The person hanging off the roof is We the People. He goes, I got you, brother. And then Frank comes in with the 2x4, pushing the guy down, labeled the Dow 50K, against 71 likes, which yeah, I'll never forget that. Grilling Pam Bondi asking, how many people have you arrested because of Epstein cases? Why are you talking about that? We should be talking about the economy. The Dow's at 50K, which is like asking your car mechanic, I have a toothache. How does this look? All right, you should be bragging about my teeth. What? It's not your job, idiot. Can't body, you're supposed to be prosecuting people and holding people accountable. And you're talking about the Dow. That was clearly a Trump coached deflection. You also have Nick's Dank Memes. There's a picture of a individual with a MAGA hat and Thomas Massie. And the MAGA hat guy goes, "Can you believe all the fraud our taxes are paying for?" And Thomas Massie says, quote, "That's exactly why I keep voting against giant spending bills and full of earmarks and pork." Then the MAGA guy says, "Shut up, Democrat." Getting 99 likes. Make it 100. Let's see here. A lot of people posting that same meme. Lockpick World has a picture of Thomas Massie, says, "I have a bad case of Trump derangement syndrome." Getting 34 likes. You also have Jacob Slattery says, "The nation needs people like in DC like Massie who stick to their values and then campaign promises in the face of opposition. America First needs become assertive to the point of the right wing and will ensure and the salads are voted out." And the primary is getting 11 likes. So yeah, I'm very, hopefully there's actually cuts done in investigations, people held accountable, but I'm pretty skeptical to say the least. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the business blunder of the day of General Motors with their 10-speed transmission recall getting, well, even worse. Which is bad news for people who somehow still buy, for some reason, General Motors products. Now, brought to us thanks to Brian Hurd over at thedrive.com. And he says, quote, "General Motors' 10-speed transmission recall just got even messier. General Motors added even more trucks and SUVs to the 10-speed valve body recall campaign. It also needs some owners to come in and do a do-over," which, of course. You can see General Motors' $100,000 plus Cadillac Escalade Banana Falcon, where they call it trim levels, which, yeah, that's a very fancy Chevrolet SUV you got there. But again, good for the shareholders. People are willing to pay for that. Now, they say, quote, "With the arrival of 2026, we've entered into a new chapter of General Motors' 10-speed transmission recall saga. If you're not familiar, GM is in the process of addressing faulty valve bodies in the gearboxes it installs in virtually every rear-wheel drive vehicle it builds, going back half a decade. It's a massive undertaking, and GM has been tackling it in stages, at times to the detriment of its owners." I don't want to say it. Actually, no, I kind of do. Wouldn't happen if you had 3 pedals, also known as a manual transmission, which is how every car should be by default, obviously. And yes, I am that weird guy where I've only ever bought and owned stick-shift vehicles, but I partially digress as these automatic transmissions get recalled. He says, quote, "General Motors have issued 2 addenda. The first is another expansion of the campaign itself that ropes in some 2022 models that weren't previously recalled. The second, and much smaller, is direct to the subset of customers who already have their transmission control modules reprogrammed to prevent rear-wheel lockups. Only it turns out GM service techs installed the wrong version of the software, effectively defeating the purpose." That's some high-quality union labor right there. They could not even install the right software. As if you needed yet another reason to just goodbye, Toyota. Now, they continue saying, quote, "Let's focus on the expansion first. General Motors added the 2022 Chevrolet Tahoe and Suburban, GMC Yukon and Yukon XL, Cadillac Escalade and Escalade CSV into the mix, but only those vehicles with the same equipment that GM calls Electronic Transmission Range Select, or ETRS. In human speak, it's Electronic Shift by Wire System, which we touched in our deep dive valve body issue. Just make a stick shift." Now, anyway, they say, quote, "ETRS wasn't standard on all vehicle models sold with the 10-speed. GM typically offered it for high-end models, picturing it as a luxury feature, and 4x4s that also offered electronic control transfer cases. Effectively, this made GM's high-end customers guinea pigs for the new tech, which all in this brings 43,732 new cars in the campaign. Important to note, the most profitable important cars that you sell. As again, GM still loses money on EVs, and they make all their money, all their profit, from gas-powered SUVs and trucks. They have a recall of the most popular thing you make, insult to injury. Now, they say, quote, "The smaller recall covers just 1,055 trucks and were built more scattershot due to the nature of the recall itself. Effectively, General Motors is reaching out to customers for a do-over. The owners of the 2020 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 and 3500, GMC Sierra 2500 and 3500, which, spoiler, same car, different badges, and 2022 to 2022, Chevrolet Silverado trucks 1500 and GMC 1500, and driving trucks with the incorrect version. Are driving trucks with the incorrect version of General Motors transmission control module software. It might not be properly detect the signs of valve body failure. That should put the truck into limp mode long before the wheel lockup begins. Clarify, the software update does not fix the inherent issues with the valve body, nor does it prevent further deterioration of performance. It simply prevents the transmission from commanding random, unsafe shifts at speed." So it's a Band-Aid. of course. General Motors recently released an updated valve body for light duty 10 speed and hopes it will provide permanent relief for customers. Yeah, we'll see about that. Again, these are, one of the first comments are, these are 80,000 plus vehicles. Yeah. Again, this is General Motors' most important profitable things is Mary Barra is trying to sell more EVs, which again, lose money every single sale. Again, you should put all your quality assurance to the things that make you the most money, General Motors, so that you can ensure the base of your business is consistent and grows, and it clearly isn't. And this is as if you need yet another reason not to buy a General Motors product. So I gotta say, General Motors, you are certainly the business blunder of the day. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Again, try to get 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so you click that button, I greatly appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comments. Great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how to make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, anyone, everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.